This is Rav Meir Shapiro number 2. Of course, last time we started talking about his life, gave a little bit of how he had lived and grew up and developed until his marriage and in his father-in-law's Shver's house. I wanted to mention also something that is about his relationship to his mother, his mother and his father and his mother were both driven. They recognized what a special child they had, what a unique child they had, and they put a tremendous amount into him. And we find beautiful things that his mother would say to him. And I want to tell you a few of them and how that would affect how he acted afterwards. She used to speak directly to his heart in a variety of ways that his heart would observe and remember. And she said, Merla, my child, see to it you study and learn Torah. Because every day that goes by with no Torah learned is something precious lost that can never be gotten back. And who knows what the day will bring. That's one thing. Every day has to be a day, sound familiar? Every day has to be a day dedicated to Torah. And sometimes when she would push him on to greater depths and greater effort, she would say to him, for such a great and mighty Torah, for Zazak Grace Torah, she would say, this is too small a sacrifice, right? Just before going on, I want to point that out. A lot of times we use the word Mesiras Nefesh. We say like I only had one and a half piece of chicken, not two, for learning. Unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh I did. I waited 1 minute longer. My Seder, what is Mesiras Nefesh? We misuse this term. So Meir Shapiro, we'd all do well to take a lesson from Meir Shapiro's mother and realize that, we're most in Nefesh sometimes, but for such a great Torah, for something so amazing, for something infinite, for something Ein Sof, for such a great and mighty Torah, it's not such a big Mesiras Nefesh, it's too small Mesiras Nefesh. But guess what? Rav Meir Shapiro used to often quote his mother, and would say in the later years, he would say, when he would talk about Daf Yomi, we have to spend time with Torah every day. And by studying Daf Yomi, because every day that goes by without Torah study is something precious lost that can never be gotten back. And who knows what the next day may bring. And when a man we're going to discuss later, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about his fundraising efforts, which we hadn't had for 15 weeks in the Altis Labud. But if you remember back in Rav Aaron Cutler, we spoke a lot about that, about the bizyonis Rav Aaron suffered and what he went through raising money. But here, what would happen? That someone would say to him, give him a little bit, not enough money for his different efforts, for the yeshiva, etc. And he would say that, times were bad, business is dreadful, every penny was a sacrifice. So what would Rav Meir say? He would quote his mother, my dear, for such a great and mighty Torah, this is too small a sacrifice. That's something he would say. So the messages of his mother penetrated into his whole soul and being, and he used them obviously for himself, but for others later. And that's just something to remember, that when we think about our children, you always have to think, like, what message are you giving out? Certainly, we can't necessarily push our children the way Meir Shapiro did. Ask your local Orthodox rabbi, local Orthodox mechanech. He grew up in a certain context. He's a certain type of child. We're not talking about that. But the idea of getting messages through to our children, finding the proper times to do it, I think I might have said before on this context that going before bedtime stories, sometimes we don't think enough about when we should teach our children, when we should get across ideas to them. We just pick the most obvious time. Well, we're together on Shabbos meal, so that's probably a good time to do it. Guess what? In front of 10 guests or 5 guests or 3 guests, your kid's a little bit shy. Your ideas aren't going to penetrate, right? Speak to them before they go to sleep. Get ideas into their heads. Find the Chachmas Isha B'Anta Beisa, the wisdom of women, especially builds their house. Al Titah Torah Simecha, Shema B'nai Musar Avicha. But parents have to be thinking about how to get across a message and when to get across a message. And the great Daf Yomi is a proof to that, because some of what powered Rav Meir Shapiro, of course, much of what powered him was his mother's love and his father's love and their dedication to him. But even not just that, but the very messages that she taught him were things that he used and worked with and taught others and inspired others with. And Bezrat Hashem, we should do the same thing with our children.